now that the Mustang is repaired, I got to go on to something just a little more challenging. Alright, so I'm not sure exactly how I did this. Well, of course, how I did this is the plane went straight in, but I think what happened was that just prior to making my approach turn, I flipped the dual rate switch, except I didn't hit the dual rate switch. I hit the throttle cut. I didn't realize it, and then went into a bank, and the thing went straight in. And so I've gone through all of my models, and I've moved the throttle cut switch to be the most inconvenient switch possible so that I never make that mistake again, because the two switches, my dual rate switch and the throttle switch, were very close and very easy to confuse. You really should never make that mistake again. So the first step is going to be to take out as much of the electronics as I can before I repair the body. You can see I've made repairs on this plane before. Pretty much learned to do aerobatics on this plane, and this of course is a Timber X, flies great, and it will, much like the Phoenix, fly again. So my experience from previous repairs is one of the first things you need to do is assess the landing gear and other pieces that need to be in really solid to make sure that they'll go together and to figure out how you're going to glue them back into place. Alright, next on the agenda is the right side of the fuselage, and that's relatively straightforward. I can either use foam tack or epoxy. What I think I'll do is I'll use foam tack to get it together, and then we'll fiberglass over the seam, and that should do it. We'll also use some toothpicks in between the two sides to create some strength in there. As you can see, as I've done in other places on past repairs. And it works pretty well. Of course, not even the toothpicks are going to put up to a hard nosedive into the ground from 100 feet. Oh. And that is inside. You can see there's these carbon fiber supports right here. Now the one on this side is never came loose. This one's a little loose, and so what we're going to do is after this repair sets, I'm going to work on just using some 5-minute epoxy to get some epoxy in there between that carbon fiber rod and the foam. All right, and then while it is curing over those 5 minutes, just hold it in there. Of course, hold it up against the foam so that it cures, and just hold it for 5 minutes with a gloved hand to add that support. Next I'm going to turn my attention to the windshield area, which took a pretty tough hit. Took one for the team. So I cut off all the wooden sticks that were in it from previous repair, and I'm going to fit all this together and see what it looks like. All right, everything's cured overnight. I'm pretty happy with the front of the plane. It's pretty good. I'm going to cut those toothpicks off today. I don't even think I need another one here, but I probably will put one in. I'm going to turn my attention to the landing gear in a second because I'm going to show you. Okay, if you look at these landing gear really closely, if you look at this one's intact. All right. And there's a little flange right here. Okay. And what that does is it keeps the landing gear from bending inward. It stops it. Okay. This one is broken off. Okay, there's no flange. And I noticed this probably happened on a previous flight because I've noticed with this plane that sometimes if I don't land just right, it bounces, that this gear tucks in like this, causing the wheel to do that, and I've lost a couple of tires that way because the stress on the tire makes it rip. You can repair those with some foam tack, but nonetheless, the tire rips out of its center core, as you can see. So I'm going to fashion, using a servo arm, a stop. One of these little micro servo arms, like so. Cut 3 out of the 4 arms off, and then screwed them in to those pieces, so you can see what I'm trying to achieve here. Okay, here it is installed. Okay, you can see I've got one on each side. All right, but there is one problem, and that is when this hits the ground, it can actually force those things to move. Okay, they're going to swivel on the screw, but I got another solution to that. Yeah, I screwed those micro servo arms into place to act as a kind of a backstop to keep that landing gear from tucking in, because again, when the gear was intact, it had these little plastic flanges to stop the gear from tucking in. These were broken off, so what I did was I screwed in those micro servo arms, but then, and again, I'm trying to find a solution that doesn't require me epoxying something in here. So I used the screws that were already in there holding the piece, used the micro servo arm, and then, but you see, even though you tighten these screws up pretty tight, if this pushes in, if the gear pushes in, it still will have a tendency to make this kind of rotate out of the way. So what I did was I just used a small piece of wire to hold the 2 servo arms together. Yeah, this is marine Monel seizing wire, which actually is designed to do jobs just like this, you know, to hold cotter pins in place and that sort of thing. But you can use any kind of bare metal wire that's thin enough to go through the servo arm holes. You wrap it around, and then this is going to work as desired. It's not going to let that wheel from tucking in, and the wire is going to hold those 2 servo arms from splaying out. Now, you can see this is from yesterday. On this side, there was a long crack here, and I was epoxying something up front, but then I I went back and epoxied this and put some fiberglass tape over. Now it's very rough now. I'm going to take a Dremel, and because sanding paper is very hard to use on this stuff, it's like glass, and just smooth this over. It's pretty rough right now, and of course I understand this doesn't look very nice. But again, this is from a previous repair. This plane's been through a lot. And then coming around here, here's the windshield area of the plane. It's all glued together. And I pushed some foam into these spaces with glue, foam glue, the foam tack. Same thing over here. And this is really solid. Decals, and it'll be looking okay, and you won't notice it when it's flying. So I reinstalled the receiver and ready to attach the wings and make sure all the electronics work. So before I repaired this part of the plane, I should have had the wing attached to make sure it sat in there. So what I had to do, as I said before, is I had to cut out a piece here. I also had to free it up, underneath here, cut that away, right? Same thing on the other side to pull this whole thing forward to get the wing in. Now I've bolted it in place, and again, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put some of that foam cement in here, foam tack, and then I'm going to epoxy this. Then I may put some some thin pieces of balsa in there, and then glue that in, and then epoxy over that, maybe with a little bit of fiberglass tape around this whole thing to hold everything in place. And then you can see the gap between the fuselage and the wing. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take your basic popsicle stick, cut it to size, and because that'll just fit right in there, to give a little, and just glue that on the top to give the fuselage right there a little more height, so that the wing rests on something solid, to keep the wing from sort of going up and down as it's flying, to give it more support. It's a little wobbly. So that's what I'm going to do. Okay, so the area that I cut away right here, okay, in order to bring the cockpit area forward to allow for the wing to fit, I filled that with 5-minute epoxy and mixed with micro bubbles to make it really thick. So I just filled this and then wiped the excess off, and then used a little bit of isopropyl alcohol to wipe most of the excess off. That's okay, because I'm going to either paint or cover all this once I get the thing fixed. And so that probably alone will hold it, but I am going to put some support for some of the areas that I had to lift up under the wing as well with some more epoxy. So that'll be the next step. Okay, so just to review, because I did not put the wing on before I secured this broken piece of the canopy area, okay, the windshield area, to make sure everything fit right, I had to backtrack, cut some of the foam out of here, and then pull this forward because the wing holes wasn't lining up well with these, okay, which are an anchor point. So I got this forward, all right, fit the wing in, bolted it in, got this in the right position, and then used some 5-minute epoxy with micro bubbles to fill the remaining gap and to hold that together in position. I also had to make some cuts along the side, on both sides, and I similarly filled those. And then, because this whole area was a little bit out of shape, there were some gaps between the bottom of the wing and the top of the fuselage here. And so I just used a couple of popsicle sticks, which I actually just hot glued in there to form supports. Okay, and then reinstalled the wing.